sort of systemic rule sets that we create in order to shuffle scarce things around. Whether that scarce thing is labor or goods or money, as the case may be. We've created these sort of systems that rely on what I think of as the final backstop of politics, which is violence, right? It all centers around this final backstop. Like at a certain point, if you have more physical ability to coerce than somebody else, then you win the argument temporarily, right? So there are many of the political rule sets that we've created are about specifically how and when violence, and by whom violence can be used. And as such, the premier political institutions of our age, the nation-state governments, can be understood as, many people understand as monopolies on violence in a geographic area. So politics can be understood as a sort of geographic rule set for managing scarcity and determining how and when and by whom violence can be used.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I'll just say something else, and maybe one of you guys wants to jump in here. But as a libertarian or as somebody that was hardcore anarchist for most of my 20s, now I've kind of softened up on that a little bit. Mostly because I see the government as kind of like there's just this rocket launcher in the middle of the room, and it's like you can't. The rocket launcher is our ability to use violence, and we're very good at it. We have thousands of years of experience using very sophisticated forms of violence and aggression, right? And how powerful they are kind of changes over time. It's a technological arms race, but there's just this thing that we've discovered that we know how to use that's very powerful and very dangerous, and who has control of it is a dilemma. We're prisoners of that dilemma. And to me, government is, I think, a awkward and very imperfect and experimental cage around it. But this thing frees itself of that cage over time. And obviously, we're at peak statism, right? And full authoritarian global medical fascism, right? So we're in a very strange place. And obviously this beast feeds of fiat money, feeds of fake money, right? They are the only ones that get to counterfeit money. We don't get to counterfeit money, only them, right? And so that's the beast. That's why Bitcoin economically can starve it. But is there a place where politics are healthy or useful? Is there a scenario where, like, how do you guys see this playing out? Let's say we reach the Bitcoin standard, mass adoption of Bitcoin. What happens then?
Yeah, so, I don't feel like I'm going to be doing it much but preaching to the choir when it comes to Bitcoiners. The whole point of Bitcoin is it's an anti-political technology. It doesn't take, everyone get money out of politics. No, get politics out of money. And there's no politics in Bitcoin. Yeah, all right, there is a little bit when it comes around to soft forks and stuff like that. But, people are people. Politics is somewhat an emergent phenomenon. But when it comes to what I think of politicians, is there any sort of use for them? No, to me they're just an inevitability. It's like, you have to cut your fingernails, something like that. You can't let them get too long, you've got to keep cutting them. Like, it's not like something you actively need and want, but it's just a sort of, it's this emergent thing, and I will advocate to my last breath developing technological ways to make these people irrelevant and redundant, and to make them just some fancy advisory people that we can all ignore. Like, you can advise me that you need my money to build a road, and I can ignore you because of Bitcoin. I can't do that without Bitcoin. So you become no longer my boss, you become someone that's offering me some advice, some sort of committee that I can tell to fuck yourself, and that's it. And yeah.
Yeah, let me challenge you on that. So yes, in the current form of political class, it's quite ridiculous, right? But I like the way Jimmy made a point yesterday in one of the panels that, at a certain point you find a place that you like living in, you just want to live there, you have your family, you have your kids, you just want to be happy and comfortable, and you want there to be good laws in the place that you live in.
Yeah.
And yeah, government is the rocket launcher in the middle of the room, but it's also a strategy for resolving conflicts that get out of hand, right? I mean, that's at least Western government structures, right? Like the whole idea of the court system and that whole game that they set up, that's meant to help us resolve conflicts where peace and private resolution has failed. And I'm not saying that that's actually that effective, it actually kind of sucks. But in terms of like wanting the laws of the place that you actually inhabit to be good and fair and reasonable and rational. I mean, I think, can we escape politics at that level, right? The local level.
Well, I mean, you never escape it entirely, because the minute you've got more than like one family on the earth, politics just, it naturally emerges, because you have to handle stuff between you. So it's always going to be there. I appreciate what Jimmy was saying about, you know, I question that a little bit, because it's a bit short-sighted to think like, oh, I live in a nice community, everything's fine. Because there's always the counterpart to that, which is there's an authority preserving this status quo, and they will become corrupt. And when they do, I'm going to suffer a lot as a result, or my kids will suffer. And that's always the point with it. It's always, here's a bunch of control over your life to make things better. Like, it's not like they would ever come to you and say, hey, we're going to take away your civil liberties to hurt you. It's always, we'll take away your civil liberties to protect you from a disease, or, you know, to maintain the economy, or something like that. And even if it's genuine in that desire, it's just, if you have the ideology that most Bitcoiners do, you just know what that leads to down the road. Is, okay, once that infrastructure exists, it's going to be used to strangle humanity. And so we just have to, it's the old, you said you were an anarchist. I mean, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And you have to pay, like, it's the flip side of responsibility and freedom. It's just like Bitcoin, that it's very hard. Bitcoin says you can have freedom to use the money as you want. But guess what? If you lose it, no one can get your money back for you, ever. Because the price of this freedom is being able to be responsible for your own money, your own private keys. You've got to learn how to generate them securely, you've got to learn how to keep them. And if people, this is why I think politics and Bitcoin changes everything, because it forces everyone to grow up. And when people grow up, then the government has a harder time infantilizing us all, and just given the separation of money and state as well, they become so much less powerful that it just kind of, if we have to have it, and it's an inevitability, I would just like to keep it as small as possible. And I think that was my progression from raw anarchist, libertarian, whatever, into my 30s, where I'm like, okay, let's be pragmatic. It was, let's just keep it as small as possible. It's always going to be there. There's no ideological justification for it, but screw ideology, let's just be pragmatic. There's always going to be negotiation between different, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a question of, you know, timeless, like in the long term, right? How is this gonna, what is the major trend? And then there's a question of like, medium and short-term tactics, and how are we going to deal with the challenges that are coming and that are showing themselves. But I feel like you have some thoughts. Maybe you want to throw it on that.
Yeah. Beyond. There it is. Yeah. Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserves neither and will lose both. Do you know who said that? Thomas Jefferson, I believe. No, Franklin. So, one of the so-called founding fathers, and I believe there's a lot of truth there. And what Bitcoin did to me is like right and left. You put a political origo in the middle, in the center between right and left. But Bitcoin has shown us all the correct way where the origo actually is, which is like to the far right on the scale, and like that's the zero, and all politics are to the left of that, because all politics need to be tax funded or funded by inflation or any other means of, you know, forceful. Yeah, it's not voluntary basically. And democracy, I view democracy as a step on the way to like a better system. We had hereditary rule, feudalism, and monarchies, and all these things before democracy, and then we have democracy, and we're going into hyper-Bitcoinization now, and we're in the first stages of it. Because in my view, there's nothing inherently moral about a majority vote. If we had a vote up here on stage whether to beat up legs or not, we could win by 5-1, and there wouldn't be nothing.
You could win the vote.
Yeah, we could win the vote, but there would be nothing inherently moral about that decision. So I think that's the great flaw inherent in the democracy.
Okay,
And,
I don't know if you've ever had to deal with somebody that's like belligerent and persistently trying to just mess with you.
I have.
Right, and like dedicated, there's a vet that we had to deal with once in an anarchist community, and this guy was just straight up out of control, didn't care about anything, was making all kinds of terrifying threats, right? And he had the knowledge and competence to do it, and he was a drunk and everything, right? So like, at some point you have to deal with this dilemma. So, okay, well there's this hostile actor trying to fuck with us.
Absolutely.
What do? And there's not that many choices. And like some of the choices are like violent, and some of the choices are like try to influence them. And if that doesn't work, then at some point you just kind of have to be like, well, maybe the most humane thing is just put him in a cage and see if he chills the fuck out.
Yeah.
And that is politics. It is the use of violence maybe to this degree. I mean, is this defensive? Like the lines get blurry when you actually try to implement.
They do, but if there's a majority vote to like fight this person or whatever, that vote itself was voluntary and just happened. It's not like it was scheduled like once every 4 years and mandatory, sort of. Another thing with democracy, which I think is a fundamental flaw, is that collectivists form larger groups more easily than individualists. If we had like, if we all started political parties, there would be as many political parties in here as there are people, because we couldn't agree on anything. We're very disagreeable, but we like Bitcoin.
I actually think there'd be more parties than people.
Yeah, that will probably happen. But if you care less about what the political party actually thinks, and if you care more about belonging to the group, groups who function like that tend to grow bigger than groups who actually care about what their political viewpoint is. So that's why, in the long run, all democracies lead to more and more collectivist parties winning, which is the same thing as more and more authoritarian regimes coming into power, and more totalitarianism. And there's no way out of this. Too bad, but democracy is so flawed that it always leads to more and more police-statey things. And we can see that all around. That's why we went off the gold standard. That's why we have the mask mandates. That's why we have the lockdowns. It's all connected, and it's all because collectivists win elections. So democracy is an immoral, I would even go so far as to call it immoral as a system. So we're moving to something much better, which is voluntary.
Democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others.
Yeah, which is not true anymore, because Bitcoin is the worst form of government, except all others that have been tried, including democracy.
That's a hell of a quote. Make sure you tweet that. So,
Monarchist is sitting right here, just FYI.
You want me to ask Saif a question?
If anyone wants to speak in defense of monarchism, please be my guest.
Yeah, so maybe you have some things.
Well, I was going to say that I've been given a different definition from a spiritual author years ago about politics, and he basically said that politics is your religion. Politics is your religion in action. And if you think about it, it really is your beliefs. I'm not a real religious person, but I have beliefs. I don't like politics. Second to religion, I don't like. Part of these reasons is I don't have a problem with God, I have a problem with religion. I don't have a problem with individual politicians as human beings, but I have a problem with trying to control people. And that's what politics is a governance. It originally was created by Aristotle, created the word politica, and he was referring to the management of the city-state. That's all, just a simple definition. But that word wasn't used again until 1529. Now, why that is, I don't know. I read it up just recently. I'm researching for this. And it's funny because when it came up and started to get the negative connotation of playing politics. And, there's the positive side of politics and the negative side, and it seems that the latter part of use of it really came about to describe people that are trying to control and manipulate other people, which is in a sense what governing the nation state does. So, my feeling, I don't have a real love of politics. Now, another interesting thing I just recently saw was a program explaining, Max Geyser, a woman that was explaining how Bitcoin could easily take down religion and politics. Now, not true. Bitcoin doesn't have an agenda, doesn't have a narrative. What do you mean by this? Well, what she's referring to is, and I didn't completely understand it, I've got to go back and read it or listen to it again, but she's talking about how by losing the third party, by destroying the need for the third party, you no longer need a priest or a father to go talk to God. You also don't need a politician to be telling you what to do. So what she's inferring is that because Bitcoin is such a good hard money and such a good standard to live on, and I think a lot of us are realizing this really does change people to a positive bent in many cases, that it actually could help us not be victims and not need to be controlled. Because I see humans being needed to be controlled. It's the bad thing. It's sad that people are victims. And they roll over and they say, oh, God did this or that, or they'll use their politics, same thing. And all the politicians did this or that to me. They only can do things to you if you allow it. Okay? There's no country can do anything to you, nobody can do anything to you unless you allow it. Now in this country, and I know that's why Ugly put me on the panel, I just asked him, it's like, what's this about? What do you want me to really talk about? I had a sneaking suspicion. The politics in Mexico are very corrupt. I'm very familiar with the system, and I use it. I use it to my benefit. I look at that as a feature, not a bug. It's sad that people are this way, but hey, it works. And that is, you can literally use politicians against politicians. They're corrupt. They'll take the money. Well, what's going to happen with Bitcoin? What happened with El Salvador was, like Jack Ballard said, that was a tiny step for Bitcoin and a huge leap for humanity. What he's referring to is what I think is going to happen. Right now, all over Latin America, the corrupt politicians are tripping over themselves to find ways to get their hands on Bitcoin and make it legal in their countries. Why? Because they're greedy. It has nothing to do with wanting to benefit the world or fix it. And it's all about, they just want more money. But the interesting thing about this is what happens when all these politicians go running after the Bitcoin? It's the Trojan horse. Yeah, you get wealthy, but you lose your control. And this is what she's referring to as over time, we're not going to need to be controlled. We're going to hopefully become less victimless. We're going to become strong people. This is what I think is happening. And this is part of the reason I'm building this ranch. You'll hear about that in the next program. But the reason I'm building, the way I'm building is because I believe the world needs resources for us to regain our power. And that power is that we are the gods. We are the politicians. Do not let people tell you how to run your life. Okay? And I know I'm speaking to the crier in most cases, but this is what we need to help other people see, is how not to follow. Follow yourself, read yourselves, do your own research, verify things, but we know this stuff. But that's what we got, that's what the Bitcoin standard, I believe, is how it's going to change politics, is because it changes our headset, the time preference, the whole thing. And all of a sudden, it's not about making money, it's not about this, it's about making things better, so.
Quick response to that and how Bitcoin makes politicians less relevant over time. It's very linear. Like, we're all here because we can afford to be here, partially because of Bitcoin. Or like, Ugly could afford to have us here because he got rich off of Bitcoin. It's very easy. The more wealthy you are, the freer you are. And like, taxation and inflation deprives us of that wealth, which we are, that's our money. They've taken it away. And the less of it we have, the fewer things we can do with our lives. And it's that simple. Politicians will become less and less relevant as we become richer and richer. That might sound, harsh or simplistic but that's the truth. If they're going to enforce masks on every fucking plane, we will need to buy private jets, and we'll just have to wait another couple of years until we all can afford private jets. This is how we regain power, by becoming filthy fucking rich.
In a sense it does. It's because once you're financially stable enough that you can look at other things, but I grew up with what I call the suicidal rich. And I know plenty of billionaires that are very unhappy people. And it's really sad to see, but I see Bitcoin billionaires a different way.
Right.
Why is that? The
Yeah.
same wealth, right? They
Because
both are
it's-
billionaires, but why is it the guys with Bitcoin want to fix the world and want to come up with solutions, and the others just want to keep making more money?
We don't want to be rich, we want to be free. And we want to use the tool of money to become free.
And free of
that's what we
politics.
want.
These are not ill-gotten gains.
Well, one thing that came out of the conversations yesterday, I think, was that Bitcoin pays you to be responsible for Bitcoin. Bitcoin pays you to, rewards you for maintaining control of your keys and being able to like actually play the game and stay in the game. And it also is this sort of virus, this cultural virus, right? So I mean, as far as tactics and strategy, the best thing we can do, in a sense, is to get like whatever enemies we have, we just gotta get them into Bitcoin. It's like if they have any greed in them, Bitcoin
That's exactly
falls
it.
to that,
It
right?
drags you
And,
in.
and then it uses that like jujitsu to like, you know, start training them into responsibility, because if they don't become responsible for that Bitcoin is going to go away to somebody who's more competent at dealing with it.
We had one of the most corrupt presidents years ago with Carlos Salinas. His brother is the second richest man in Mexico, and he's a Bitcoiner. He's put on laser eyes yesterday. But the thing is, I called him out several times on Twitter going, if you really care about your people, like, how about fixing what your brother screwed? His brother ripped off the country and both lives in Ireland with all this money. And his brother and Carlos Slim are some of the richest people now. Why don't you want to do something good? But, you know, he calls himself a Bitcoiner, but I'll say, people that own Bitcoin doesn't make you a Bitcoiner. We know this. But the fact is, he's going to get richer. But is he really, I mean, if this doesn't, I was thinking it's changing. I think the reason the red eyes, because people are on his case about this. How rich do you need to be? So hopefully some of these people that are in these positions, and this is where I see politics is becoming less effective. Like it just, we don't need them. It's just like, if we get down in Baja Sur, and I build my ranch, I set this up the way I want to, we get enough people down there, there's only 1 million people in the entire state. If we're doing a proper community, and we're teaching people and helping people and everything else, we can grow and grow. Nobody's going to ever mess with us. Nobody wants to mess with us. And we can literally run that state. I know politicians, they called me just the other day to see if they could get a governor elected down there. Like, why are they calling some gringo? My friends are like, why do they call you? Because I know people and they want me to recommend them to those people. But it's, you know, this is all, the thing about Mexico's politics, just so you know, I've known every president that's going to be elected. In the last 30 years, every single time, I've been told 2 years to a year in advance, this will be the next president of Mexico. And there is somebody in this, I don't know if they're in this room, but there's somebody here that knows who might be the next president. He actually related to him, and he's American, but he said, my sister, and I'm like, oh, you're kidding. Because I can find out if that really is, and it turns out, yep, they're possible. They're not ready to say, but you see, in this country, it's like, why vote? You already know who's going to be the president. Politics are so corrupt in this country that it's a dirty game.
And it's honest corruption in a way, right?
Yeah.
And it's spread out evenly, right? And I think I'll take anything like this compared to tyranny, you know, any day, right? I'll take honest corruption over tyranny any day. So, I mean, I think that's really interesting. We're coming up short. We got about 10 more minutes in this panel, and I mean, I think we should talk about tactics in the midterm. Obviously, we just collided with the legislative sort of, democratic machine, or like the American sort of political machine, and we kind of jammed its gears for a few days because they're trying to pass this sketchy bill, right? And they roped us in on it in order to justify the expense, right, of $1 trillion, right? And so now people got activated, people got political, started, I guess, calling their senators. Of course, what else do you do, right, at that point? But what I see there is just because we are growing, because we're expanding, because we're getting wealthier and wiser and more responsible thanks to Bitcoin, and thanks to our own sort of efforts and ambitions, we are becoming a political class of sorts, or at least, and this is the question that I find a lot of people in this industry don't really discuss, which is, what does success look like? Like, what are we expecting is going to happen, right? Like, are we going to end up in our own little citadels, hiding away from the world? Are we going to try and make the world a better place? Are we going to become the next generation of wealthy, powerful people? And how are we going to wield that power? Are we going to just be shitposting on Twitter? Or are we gonna, is there a more sophisticated version of that? Because I can shitpost just as good as the next guy, but like I think at some point we have to expand our toolkit, right? So maybe let's talk about that a little bit, yeah.
Well, maybe you should talk to the only person who actually lives in America that's on this panel. So it's very interesting that you brought up the midterms, because I wasn't even thinking about that. But you know, when you mention the politics of the Bitcoin standard, I mean, politics, I think, especially in that sentence, you can have two meanings. Politics can mean, you know, civilized violence, I guess, is one way of saying politics. But in this sense, it could mean the principles of Bitcoin, our philosophy. That's what we mean by politics. But the interesting thing is, based on what we saw in this bill that they were trying to ram through, is it became pretty clear. I mean, I wasn't paying too much attention to it, honestly, because I was riding cross country. I was more worried about, you know, not running out of gas and where I was going to stay that night, and I was worried about things like that. I wasn't paying too much attention, but I was kind of keeping tabs on it on Twitter. And the very interesting thing that I noticed is that Bitcoin did actually break down on the political in the political aisle. We saw that Democrats were kind of against it, and Republicans were more in favor of it. And it doesn't mean that Ted Cruz is a Bitcoiner. Not even close. Ted Cruz's wife, I believe, works for Goldman Sachs, if I'm not mistaken. So what it does mean is that we kind of have this, we're kind of this intolerant minority, and we have this power because we have this guerrilla politics going on, where we can actually manipulate and kind of, even as a small minority, we can kind of play the politicians off against each other to our benefit. And the funny thing is that I didn't call my senator. I'm not a Bitcoin lobbyist, I'm a Bitcoin motorist. So I'm not going to be doing any garbage like that, like that's going to do anything. But a lot of people were. I mean, I went through Austin, I talked to some Bitcoiners in Austin, and they were like, hey, make sure you call your senator. And I was surprised to have these people who are hardcore Bitcoiners who, you know, are anarchists tell me to call my senator. You know, I didn't argue with them over it. But I think it's very interesting, and I think it's it kind of shows how much of an unforced error, because maybe this wasn't clear in 2019, what is clear in 2021, but it kind of shows how much of an unforced error it was for Trump, a Republican, so to speak, to criticize Bitcoin on Twitter. To me, you know, I don't know if that cost him the election. There was probably some other things that cost him the election, but to me, that was one thing that could only hurt him. It couldn't have helped him. If there was anybody who didn't like Trump and didn't like Bitcoin, if they saw Trump say something bad about Bitcoin, they weren't going to change their vote and become a Trump guy. But if you're a Bitcoiner and you're a Trump guy and you hear Trump saying something negative about Bitcoin, maybe you won't show up to vote on the day of the election, or maybe, you know, you'll sleep in that day. So I think that that it's interesting to see this play out in the political realm, and I'm just happy watching it, and I'm watching the chaos, and watching the crypto people and the Bitcoin people argue about it back and forth, and you know, and one thing that I want to mention real quickly, Juan, is we kind of think of the principles of Bitcoin as being the principles of liberty and freedom, but what's been really surprising is that a lot of these people who are into liberty and freedom don't get Bitcoin. They turn into shitcoiners, or they're no-coiners, and on the flip side, we see somebody like Jack Dorsey, who supposedly is not into liberty and freedom. Jack Dorsey seems to get Bitcoin much better than somebody like Roger Ver. You know, who's your, you know, if you're going to have a Bitcoin hero, would you rather have someone who's a hardcore anarchist like Roger Ver, or would you rather have someone who's a statist leftist like Jack Dorsey? And you know what? I'll take Jack Dorsey any day.
If libertarians had good strategy, they'd be in power, right? So.
Just because you're a libertarian doesn't mean you're not a moron.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, this ties into the collectivist why do we thing. So, yeah,
Well, Bitcoin kind of, do you want to talk about, just respond to toxicity and sophistication and tactics, whatever?
Toxicity, you mean like, well, I mean, that's been addressed, the toxicity thing. I've got a friend called Thomas Strolite who wrote an article called Bitcoiners are not toxic, they just have integrity. And and it's been pretty much demonstrated that the people that consider us toxic are the people trying to peddle scams, who we keep annoying by pointing out that their scams are scams. And they're so toxic. To me, it was always, the analogy for this was always, if you're in an argument with your girlfriend, and you start winning, your girlfriend goes, "You're being mean. Stop being mean." That's what that always was to me. I'm like, yeah, well that's it. That's sexist. So, I mean, the toxicity thing is stupid. Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing department, so we are its de facto marketing department, which means we and there's a lot of honor in it, and the sort of the pleb thing, the vindicated honored pleb, the king of plebs. Like, the whole thing is, the minute you start coming at us with this shiny corporate veneer, Brian Armstrong puke, like all this stuff, just no one wants to hear it. It's not appropriate in this space. We resent it. We would much rather have like American Hodl and all these kinds of people that say ridiculous and offensive stuff all the time because it's authentic, right? And it speaks to being not a member of the political class, because you're voluntarily denying yourself the ability to become a member of the political class if you start using like unacceptable words and saying things that are politically unpalatable, like just being trad and saying things like, oh, there are men and women, that's it, and all of these things that are impossible if you want to go into politics. It's like, if you're going to sacrifice your ability to do that, we're going to trust you. And that's actually, I hadn't really thought of that until I was talking about it here. But you said something previous as well, you were kind of directing at me as well, which was like, what do we do when we become the next richest class? And that's a beautiful thing, because this is why I love the bear cycles, I love the crashes, because it means that the only people in Bitcoin are the people that fucking want Bitcoin and just believe in it and would die for it. They're the only people left. All of the pumpers and the F-cards and all of the shitcoiners, they get washed out every 4 years when we have a horrendous crash and we go down 80%. There's so many, the people left in Bitcoin are the people that just believe in it, or the people that just bought some and forgot about it, which isn't that many, let's be honest. And that means that I'm stretching it a little bit, I'm being a little bit hopeful here, but when we are the next billionaire class, we're going to be very much going to consist of people that have a lot of battle scars and have fought for something and have been prepared to basically not die for it literally, but at least go, what started with 10% of my wealth is now 99.9% of my wealth, and I was ready to watch that all evaporate. And that, if you're prepared to do that, then you have the kind of integrity I want to see in my wealthy class. And you're the opposite of the current class, which is the Elon Musks of the world, which is sucking on the government's tits and benefiting from the fact that there's so much money out there that was stolen from people via taxation that you can access if you just tick the right boxes. And it's just undeniably a better world. So that's how it looks to me. I think it's maybe a little bit, maybe I'm bending it a little bit and being a bit optimistic, but it's definitely better. How much so? Not sure, but it's definitely better.
We're not going to die for it, but we are going to get COVID for it.
It's Bitcoin's virus, and spread it. Spread the Bitcoin variant.
Yeah. Just one thing about the word we. We are not going to do anything. As individuals are going to do what the fuck we want. There's no we there. And it's going to be awesome. Fuck yeah. Amen.
I'd agree. I think it's definitely, I see what's going on with Bitcoin as a new declaration of digital independence, which we will go into in a panel a bit later, where it goes beyond Bitcoin a little bit, because money is not the only thing we do in the digital realm. But it was we the people, right? The Declaration of Independence was we the people. And either person is stronger than that. And this Bitcoin is, at least within the monetary domain, declaring independence and saying, I, the person, find the following, blah, 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 blah. Like, beautiful.
Yeah. So on this, just a note to end on, Knut, you were mentioning yesterday something that you saw about the wealth disparity in Bitcoin, so to speak, as far as we can measure it, which is not perfect, actually shrinking. In other words, while the world is spiraling out into this technocratic feudalism, right, where Jeff Bezos hit $3 trillion recently, meanwhile everybody else is broke, all the small shops are, out, right, like the world is separating. in disparity, but Bitcoin is actually compacting.
Yeah, I talked about this on another panel, like how the addresses or the users with only a few amount of Bitcoin, those numbers are growing, and the ones that hold like 10,000 Bitcoin or more, those numbers are decreasing. So Bitcoin is effectively doing it's the first mechanism, actual functioning mechanism for the distribution of wealth that we have. And it's doing that by doing the exact opposite of what socialists and central banks want to do.
That's a very powerful.
And redistributing the wealth is also redistributing the power.
And the reason why that works that way is because there's no Cantillon effect in Bitcoin. And there's no proof of stake in Bitcoin. If you want to make more Bitcoin, you have to actually provide some productivity to somebody, provide value, or you have to actually spend electricity and put time in and maintain these machines to mine Bitcoin. So you have to actually work to make it. You can't just sit back and watch your pile of Bitcoins grow just by doing some fiat bond or by
and it really gives you a sense of abundance. Once you have enough Bitcoin and you've organized your life enough such that you don't have gigantic out of control expenses, suddenly you're just net green, and then eventually you realize that there's more to life than money because you have enough money, right?
In a world where you can't extract value from other people by putting a gun to their heads, because you don't know how much they have and you don't know how to get it out of them. There is no other way to extract value from another person than providing them with some value in return. And this is the great shift in power that is going on here. We're doing things voluntarily instead of under threat, and it's profound. Have you heard of Roko's honey badger? The idea of Roko's honey badger? I came to think about that before. That it's the concept. It's a concept in AI. It has been called the scariest thought. The scariest thought ever thunk, and it's about how a future AI will punish you for not helping it come into existence at some point in the future. So at some point in the future there might be an entity that will punish the future you for not helping it come into existence. And just the thought of that is scary. But Bitcoin is like the opposite of that. I call it Roko's honey badger, because it rewards everyone that helped it come into existence in the present. It will reward us.
And punishes people who fight it.
There I choose to be an optimist, because it will even reward those people in a way, in an indirect way.
Yeah, in a roundabout
But
way.
fuck them anyway.
If you're attacking Bitcoin and you help strengthen it, and then you get to live in a world where Bitcoin exists in a more robust sense, you benefit even by the most roundabout fashion, even if you never bought any.
Exactly. Fuck you and thank you.
A lot of people feel that Bitcoin can't benefit, the people that don't own the Bitcoin can't benefit from it, but I guarantee you over the years, as this goes on, people that are non-coiners are going to benefit from the fact that Bitcoin exists. And there's no doubt in my mind it's going to change politics, it's going to change power and distribution of wealth, and that changes the whole game.
Great note to end on. Well, thanks everybody.